Not really sure if anybody's watching right now, but I will go ahead and get started anyway. It's the live stream, then hopefully you're watching this video on my new YouTube channel. Let me know what you think about it in the comments, and let's jump right in. I'm going to be doing a full playthrough of the G.I. Joe deck building game that we talked about on my previous stream. And we'll be doing a one-player playthrough of the mass device mission. As I mentioned on that previous stream, the G.I. Joe game is a little interesting comparatively to other deck builders because you actually work toward accomplishing mission goals rather than just doing player versus environment or player versus player type game. So go ahead and crack this open and see what we can see. All right, so I'm going to keep the rule book on hand because, but it's always good to have a reference. Here's my Cobra threat indicator. I want the 1 to 2 player side, so I have my DC cameras set up today. So let's see if I can that working. A little closer view to some of the details in here. So pop this up whenever there's something extra to show. So on the threat indicator here, we have a numerical indicator up in the corner. See that 1/2. So that's the single player or 2 player side of the threat indicator. Whereas alternatively on the back, you've got the side designated for 3 to 4 players. So for this playthrough, I'm going to be using the 1 to 2 player side. So the rest of the things that we have to set up for this 1 to 2 player play, or I guess not 1 to 2 player, but this solo playthrough. We have the hangar, we have the reserve space, dice. Our markers and indicators. So here at the start of the game, I'm going to put the threat indicator in blue. Turn marker. So in these single player games, the player gets a second turn. Our other indicators for if we need counters or any other such thing. I'm going to go ahead and build our story for this game. So doing the mass device, so I'll separate out the mission 1 cards from this deck. Here are my 3 chapter missions. And I'll separate out my 3 decks of submission cards. And shuffle and deal those out. So each chapter consists of 2 missions here. So shuffle those up, down 2 missions, and then the chapter 1 end story. Go ahead and do that for chapter 2 cards also. 1, 2, and the chapter 2 story. And one last time for chapter 3. 1, 2, and the chapter 3 story. So now, that's going to be my story deck for this playthrough. And I will go ahead and flip it, put it over here. So moving on, I have my library deck. So this is going to be the deck that we use to purchase new cards out of. Back here. Flip up the library. And set up. I have buried the vamp. And we need the vamp because that is our designated full-time vehicle. So I want the vamp to go into hangar. The vamp's always going to be your starting vehicle, and it's always going to be a vehicle available to you for missions. So as you play, every time you want to engage with one of the story missions or a side mission, you're going to use one of the vehicles located in your hangar. Each one has a capacity for the number of Joes that it can hold, and you're going to assign Joes to it. And depending on the mission type versus the vehicle type, you may or may not get a bonus toward that mission completion. Sorry about that glare on the reserve card. Not too shiny. Next up, I have my enemy cards, or I'm sorry, the expert mode cards we won't be using today because I am not playing this on expert mode. Good to know that expert mode is available for anyone who's looking for a game with an increased challenge of some sort. Then I have my complications deck. Complications deck is going to have events that can occur during story missions that have to be overcome because they increase the difficulty on said story mission. So I then put my complications here under my stories. Then I have my various enemy cards. These will come into play throughout the different story missions based on whatever the criteria on said story card indicates. So those over here. For my starter cards, firstly, we need to get a leader assigned to this mission. So, as I pointed out in the earlier stream, there's 6 available leaders in the core deck: Roadblock, Flint, Scarlet, Snake Eyes, Duke, and Lady J. So I will shuffle those to randomly choose a leader for this mission. Looks like we're going with Roadblock as this mission leader. You can see Roadblock's got a rating of 2 in marksmanship. And if he's got a gear in play, he gets +1 wild, or he can draw a card. Wild is the basic energy that you get from a card if you're using one that doesn't have a specialty that matches the mission. I'm going to set aside my promoted leader. So here's my promoted Roadblock. I'm going to set that over here for now. And then for a single player game, promoted leaders get shuffled into the library deck. You can buy those to augment your G.I. Joe team as you play. Of turn sequence card that I'll just set to the side. Turn sequence is kind of your cheat sheet card. It's got your different phases of the turn on one side, and it's got mission execution on the other side. Then I have my other starters, so comms, defuse, second effort, and service rifles, which are my basic purchases for filling in empty slots in my deck when I have a limited amount of energy that just give me a standard 1 wild for my energy pool. So my starter cards are going to consist of 6 G.I. Joes. These are basically your green shirts, and they're pretty much just a 1 wild energy. So they're generic deck builder wild cards. Get 6 of those. You get 1 comms card, and a comms card allows you to either discard 1 uncovered card from the lineup and replace it, or allow a teammate to draw a card. So 1 comms card in my deck. 1 defuse card. Defuse allows you to reduce a difficulty if you defeat a side mission during a turn. So that's kind of an after the fact card. And then 1 second effort. And a second effort allows a reroll. So if I fail a combat mission, then I can play a second effort card to reroll the dice roll for that mission and see if I can maybe pull it out the second time. So with my leader card, it gives me a starting deck of 10 cards that I will shuffle. And place here is my draw pile. So as I go, that deck is going to continue getting bigger and bigger as I add more cards to it from my lineup, from the library. Let's go ahead and move some of this stuff up to make it a little easier to see the play area. Again, I apologize for the glare. I need to potentially change out some lighting in here, but I am very much still refining this streaming process. So Please bear with me as we go. So I can take the rest of my starter cards here, put them back in the box. We'll need them. And that gives me a play area that's mostly set up like the one described in the instruction booklet. And it's slightly different just to make sure I save space for what I'm trying to do with getting stuff on camera, but it's close enough. So we can, if I want, move up the missions to make some additional room for complications down here. Otherwise, there's not going to be much to change in order to make a useful playing field. Now that I expanded the play area, let's go ahead and open this up a little bit. Because honestly, I think I mixed up my rules for the G.I. Joe deck building and the DC deck building. DC requires a 4-card library draw pile, but I'm pretty sure that the G.I. Joe one, requires a 6-card library draw pile. So I'll go ahead and add 2 more cards here. We expand that. No. Well, I must have shuffled that really well to get 2 promoted leaders in the very first draw, but it is what it is. We'll figure it out from there. So just to explain what everything out here is going to be doing during the game. So these are cards available to purchase to enhance my deck. The reserve is a specific placeholder for a solo game because as a solo player, I am able to take a card from my hand, place it on the reserve, and use it again in the second round. Because as a single player game, I get to take 2 consecutive turns before progressing and having to execute any of the story mission criteria that normally come into play at the end of the turn. So that gives me a little extra chance each round to continue building up my deck. Then I also have the threat indicator, which is going to advance throughout the game. And the threat indicator is a measure of how close Cobra is to completing their mission. So if it gets to the end point before I am able to complete all the story missions, then Cobra wins. And like I said earlier, the hangar is specifically for putting my vehicles, which are going to be requirements to be able to deploy a team on a mission. So as far as the cards themselves go, a couple different things that you need to be aware of. For vehicles, up here, you have a number up in that upper left corner, and that number indicates how many Joes the vehicle can take on a mission. So the VAMs can 4 Joes. Whereas something like the APC, which you can see is in the draw library, is capable of 8 Joes. The APC also has that tank icon on it, meaning that it's a ground vehicle. So if I'm using it to execute a mission that's a ground mission, if it were to have any additional text on the bottom here, which the APC does not, If there were additional text, then that would be mission bonuses that I get because I'm using the appropriate vehicle type for that mission. As far as cards that go in your hand go, you can have either utility cards, which are kind of powers and abilities, equipment cards, or Joes. So every card up in the upper left corner has a value. So that's the purchase amount if I want to add that card to my deck. So that's how many energy, wild card energy, you're going to have to use to be able to add that card. Below that, the 2, that's the card's value. So the paper text underneath is going to be all of the actual functions that this particular card will have to affect whatever missions you're trying to execute. Same thing goes for gear. Exact same card layout as for utilities. But then you get some differences when you get to the actual Joes. The Joe card will have not only the cost and the card value, but it's going to have 1 or 2 ratings. So Hawk here has 2 ratings. He's got 4 in marksman and 3 in stealth. That's essentially the number of dice that that card is going to allow you to roll on a mission that requires those specific skill sets. Hawk's also got a special ability of granting just +2 wild skill, meaning just by being in your hand and played on a specific mission, he's going to grant an extra 2 power. So letting you roll more dice, meaning letting you give more of a chance to actually complete the mission. So let's take a look here at the mission deck. See what the first step of this mission is going to be. Well, this one is find the tracking device, and it says to create an accurate signal transfer, Cobra needs to place the tracking device near the locations. The Joes can't let this happen. So this has a ground mission requirement, because you see the tank over on this side. It brings with it 2 complications because of that red 2 underneath. It comes with the requirement to put major blood into play, so this one's going to have a villain attached to the mission itself. And it's a stealth or tracker mission. So Joes with stealth or tracker skills are going to grant me a bonus on this particular mission. So when I engage in the mission, if I succeed, then I lower the difficulty on the progress track by 1 point, and I get to draw a card. If I fail, then I add a Cobra Trooper to my deck. Cobra Troopers are there to take up space in your deck and become a hindrance as you try to do other actions throughout the game. So you can see that Cobra Trooper has a difficulty rating of 1, so you need to defeat Cobra Troopers. But they shuffle into your deck every turn when you get a new one, and there's actually no limit to the number of them that you can retrieve. Or be stuck with, I guess. And then for this first particular mission, it also says to put Major Blood into play. And Major Blood is going to be an extra obstacle for this mission because he has to be defeated as part of the criteria for completion. He's got a difficulty of 4 and requires either marksmen or vehicles. And the longer he stays in play, you can see at the start of each turn, place a Cobra Battalion on an uncovered card in the lineup with a cost of 5. So the cards in the lineup here they can be buried underneath Cobra battalions, and you'll have to buy those with an energy expense of 5 before you can uncover the cards you need and make them available for purchase again. Welcome, card man. I am pleased to see you're happy with the stream. Hopefully it continues to go up. So at this point, we have everything we need set up for the game we're going to be playing. In this case, we have the one-player errata here at the back. Give you slight rule variations. So if you're playing a solo or a two-player game, rather than the 3 to 4. Oh, nice. I don't have the Power Rangers tech builder yet. I've got G.I. Joe with the expansions and the Transformers tech builders. So Battle of the Grid is definitely on my list. So if you're familiar with the multiplayer game, then you'll definitely want to make sure you check out the rule changes and errata for the solo game. But for now, start playing. Hey, game dude, how's it go? Oh, cool. Yeah, that's right. I actually have the G.I. Joe miniatures game. Also, cannot remember the name, but I have that and the expansions for that also. It's a lot of fun, but unfortunately, there's no single player element to it. All right, so I drew my first hand, and for this first hand, I got 3 of my green shirts, a diffuse card, and roadblock. So I'm really not quite ready to take on a mission yet. So instead, I'm going to use my energy total. In this case, each green shirt gives me +1 for energy. That's the card's power rating. And then roadblock also gives me +1 for energy. So I have a total of 4 energy that I can spend this turn. Got this one into my deck here. For this first turn, I have 4 energy available. So the only cards I'm really able to purchase are either going to be the utility card of Use Hold for backup or the gear card of Proximity Mine. Yeah, I can't shuffle it through. Oh, don't they? I know that at least US Amazon carries almost all of the Renegade Games lineup, so there's no markup or anything on them. You might be able to get some of your games through Amazon. Willing to pay whatever Amazon's international shipping fees are. Because I have 4 energy and I don't want it to go to waste, I'm going to go ahead and grab the utility card. So this one allows me to add a Joe from my hand to a teammate's side mission during their turn. At the end of the mission, return this card to hand. Actually, one of the single player rules is if you come across cards from the library as you go that are multiplayer cards and have this no solo indicator on them, you actually discard those from play and replace them with a new card from your library. So that actually works in my favor because I discard that utility card and to replace it in the lineup, I get Beachhead. And Beachhead only costs me 4 energy. So I will go ahead and use the 4 energy I have to add Beachhead to my deck. Beachhead goes in my deck, and everything goes into my discard pile. Then I replace the card in the lineup, so I have a full 6 cards. Draw my next 5 for my new hand, and continue play that way. So the next 5 cards, I only have 3 energy. Oh yeah, not any of those exclusives. I forgot they have those mini packs and such, so that's kind of a bummer. So what we're talking about is on the Renegade Games site, Renegade being the producer of G.I. Joe, Transformers, Power Rangers games. For each of the different games that they actually have for all of them a tabletop pen and paper role-playing game, a miniatures game, and a deck builder game, and have some exclusive content for each of those. That exclusive content can be either small additional card packs, various types of add-ons like that. But they're only available through the Renegade site. They don't provide those through third-party sellers. So, unfortunately, Renegade, they have a limited list of countries they ship to, so they might not be available in all regions. But most of the core sets, in fact, all of the core sets, I believe, are available through Amazon. So, just something to be aware of. But in this new hand I drew, I'm not going to be engaging in a mission, so I don't need to re-roll. That card's pretty useless to me in this one. I'm not going to discard an uncovered card from the lineup. Replace it with, or target teammate with 3 or fewer cards in hand, draws 1 card. So, actually for this one, I might go ahead and use it because this APC, well, and Hawk, they're both pretty high cost cards, and it'll be a while before I can get to those. So I think I'll go ahead and use that card to grab the APC, move it to the discard pile here, and replace it in the lineup with something new that might be easier for me to get and better for my deck overall. So I use that one, not going to bother using this one, and then I have 3 energy left that I can use to buy another card from the lineup. So in this instance, I think I'm going to go ahead and buy the Shark, which will give me an aquatic vehicle. So if I have a mission with an aquatic requirement and I use the Shark, then I get +2 to tech. If I don't meet the aquatic requirement, then I just get a +2 wild and +1 vehicle skill. So having acquired that one, add it to my deck, discard my hand, replace it in the lineup, and then shuffle my deck again. Now that I've completed my first 2 turns, like I said, for the solo player game, you get both the first round turn, so that's your standard turn, and then you also get a second turn just for solo play that allows you to continue trying to add to your deck before what happens now, which is to enact any of the criteria on your story mission card. So in this one, put Major Blood into play and add my 2 complications. So you can see here that when it comes to story cards or mission cards, you have the train indicator, the face down complications, the difficulty and skills, penalties or bonuses, and any additional ongoing effects that might come with that particular mission. So for this particular one, we need that Major Blood card be put into play. Major Blood up here. And then from the complications deck, I need 2 face-down complications. See where the best place to put those so they're visible. Just like that ought to work. So now we're going to go ahead and move on to the next round. But at the start of each round, you have to activate any story mission penalties. So for this story mission, there are no penalties other than Major Blood being put into play, which has already happened. Execute any card effects from cards that are already in play. So the one we would execute is Major Blood, which means we place 1 Cobra Battalion on an uncovered card in the lineup with a cost of 5 or more. So over here, retrieve one of my Cobra Battalions. Retrieve a Cobra Battalion and put it over an uncovered card with a cost of 5 or more. It doesn't specify, so I'll go ahead and cover Hawk. Yeah, Game Dude, I definitely plan on doing some video game streams. Specifically, I want to start with like animation related games. So probably some of the older PS2 stuff, like Transformers or Robotech Battlecry, that sort of thing. Some of the NES games like G.I. Joe or the Turtle games that came out on NES, and even some of the old Commodore 64 games, because Commodore 64 had everything from Brave Star to GoBots to Battle of the Planets, and I think they ought to be interesting to take a look at just from a historical perspective. So that's on my radar. It won't always be board games. It won't always be card games. I'm going to mix it up as we go. So moving on to this next turn, draw my next 5 cards. And let's see what we have to work with here. I have B-roll. I have a discard. I have Beachhead, which gives me 1 power. 2 green shirts, which gives me a total of 3 power. So I don't have a lot of options still in my lineup. So in this case, I will go ahead and choose my 3 power card of, I'm sorry, my 3 cost card of Distraction, which allows me to change any single success dice rolls into double success dice rolls. It'll be a handy card for ensuring that I get some better results out of missions I try to execute. Now, I think I did forget one thing at the start of this mission. I'm sorry, at the start of this round. So at the beginning of each round, you actually need to advance the threat meter. So each round is going to start out, refill any of the missing story missions and resolve any of the start turn effects, execute missions, recruit, and then execute more story mission effects, draw and redraw your hand. But start of turn effects can be executing any of the complications. So with the red complication symbol, you draw a number of complications equal to that, put them face down, resolve any of your started turn effects, followed by any of your in-play card effects. And then you go on your missions. I honestly thought there was a step of instruction on the mission cards that say to advance the threat indicator. Okay, yeah. At the end of the round, once everybody's taken your turn, round is over. At this time, resolve end of round effects. Always result in the threat meter moving up one space. So when I finish this round, that's when I'll be progressing the threat meter. Fortunately, there are some cards that are going to let me pull that threat meter back down, reduce the threat a little bit. But if we want to make this really indicative of an actual G.I. Joe cartoon, then, well, in those first three miniseries, Cobra always almost won before G.I. Joe turned it around and pulled things out of the end. So we'll see how that goes. But the other piece of the puzzle here is the complication cards. So complication cards come into effect as you move up through the threat indicator, right? So in the yellow section of the threat meter, then you draw another complication card and resolve it. But in most rounds, you're just going to enact the complications at the beginning of the round. So you finish this round out, and then move the threat meter up one and implement the complications at the beginning of the next round. So here I'm going to go ahead and draw another 5 cards. This time I end up with the shark, which I can put into the hanger. I have 2 green shirts and roadblock. So 3 power available to me. Oops, I forgot to fill up the lineup. So let's go ahead and make sure the lineup's full. I don't really have much that I can buy in the lineup right now. So I'm actually going to use my 3 power here to attack that Cobra battalion that's covering up Hawk. So you take 3 die. And of course, because I can't roll, I was unable to defeat that Cobra battalion because I only rolled 1 successful attack with those 3 die. So that Cobra battalion stays in play. And I can use the 3 power that I spent this mission to buy a card. So I'll buy the only one I can afford. Replace it in the lineup. And draw my next hand. So I will redraw, and then we will start the next round. Which means enacting the complications. The first complication I have is story missions get +1 difficulty and immediately draw and resolve another complication. So that means I get a 3rd complication, which is going to increase my story difficulty by 1 more. So right now, my story difficulty is at 4, but I have 2 complications that are adding +1 to it. So that means I'm going to have to get 6 successes on my dice roll in order to clear that story mission. And then I have a complication that says when I do engage in the story mission, I have to take one of my die that is a hit and re-roll it. That's going to make this mission exponentially harder than it was originally. And my threat meter increases 1 space. So that's the first mission for me. I need 6 difficulty to defeat it now. So even if I wanted to, I can only take 4 Joes on the mission with me. So the most power I could field for this particular mission would be 4. I could try to do that, hope that I roll double successes because each die has 3 misses, 2 single successes, and 1 double success. I could hope that I got enough of those to complete the mission, but the odds are very unlikely. So all I can really do at this point is continue to try and build up my deck a little more. So I will go ahead and use the 5 power that I have from this hand and add this drone strike to my deck. And I move on to my second solo turn. Draw another 5-card hand. This time I have 4 energy, 2 from the proximity mine, 2 from my green shirts. I could potentially use this card, but it can only actually be used on a mission. It's got a little M for the mission indicator, but it does allow me to discard one of those complications as I try to complete a mission, which should knock my difficulty back down to a 5 if I have it in play. Oops. Again, I forgot to refill the lineup. Not great at that. So, I have 4 energy. I'll go ahead and purchase this detonator card and refill my lineup. Redraw another 5-card hand. I did forget at the end of my last turn, or at the beginning of this turn, to enact Major Blood's start of turn criteria. So I actually needed to cover another card in the lineup with a Cobra Battalion because Major Blood does that at the beginning of every turn. So because we're starting the next turn now, we'll cover another card because of Major Blood's special ability. Fortunately, that's the only start of turn difficulty I have to deal with. I'll advance the threat meter 1 place, and I will see what's going on with my newest hand. So for this one, I actually have a decent card for this first story mission here because Beachhead gives a 4 stealth rating. So if I were to use Beachhead on this mission, I would get 4 attack dice from his stealth attack rating because the mission is a stealth and tracker mission. So I could try to go and do this mission right now with 5 dice, or I can continue moving forward and keep building my deck, hopefully faster than the threat meter can increase. You have a card that allows me to change all of my hits to double hits. So that might actually be a good hand to use to engage that first story mission. Let's go ahead and try that. Have the vamp, which will be my vehicle for this story mission. I'll assign both Beachhead and my green shirt to the story mission. And I will use the distraction card to double my success rolls. Hopefully I get a few of them. So that means I have 5 dice available, 4 for Beachhead, 1 wild for my green shirt, and unfortunately I don't have my card that will allow me to get rid of one of the complications, but I do theoretically have a chance because of that double hit card. So if I roll that out, now that's actually a pretty nice roll, for me at least, because that means I do have the complication to re-roll 1 hit. That would have been enough for me right there to have successfully completed the mission. But that complication didn't hurt me too bad anyway, and I got 6 hits, meaning I met the 4 difficulty on this card. Wait, you know what? No, that's fine. So I met the 4 difficulty on this card because of Beachhead's stealth ability. So this card leaves play. The complications that were related to that mission leave play. I have the vamp to return to the hangar because the vamp is the only vehicle that recycles back to the hangar after every turn. And I have 3 power that I can use to recruit. So I will go ahead and grab Zap. Lineup. Those. Part 2 of my turn for the solo play. Draw another 5 cards. And then start the next turn. So at the start of the next turn, Major Blood is still in play. Another battalion. Threat meter increases 1 spot. Because I defeated that last mission, I get the benefit of using the threat meter by 1 space and drawing a card. So put that back down, draw a new card from my hand, and oops, draw a new card, not taking off the library. Draw a new card from my hand, and see what we have to use for this turn. All right, so what I've got is a total of 5 energy, or 5 attack power, if I want to try and clear off any of those Cobra battalions or get rid of Major Blood so that he doesn't continue putting battalions over my cards in my lineup. I've got the Drone Strike, which their highest skill becomes wild, meaning I could use whatever skill level I wanted from any card, any Joe that I assigned to the mission as a mission appropriate skill. But rather than doing anything for the missions, which this is the new mission that popped up, the Code Cobra Secret Transmission. It's immediately got Mainframe on the card, but Mainframe wasn't around during the Mass Effect miniseries, so that's fun. But this one says to place the token 3 spaces above the threat marker. If the threat marker reaches it, the mission immediately fails. So take one of my sunburst tokens here, put it 3 spaces above my threat marker, and then I have 1 complication related to this mission, so I have 1 complication out. And I did that wrong last time. Complications don't actually come into effect until you engage the mission. So I flipped those early, but they actually hit right at the time you decide to go after the mission criteria. But I think my best bet here will be to use these 5 abilities, or 5 attack power that I have to try and take out Major Blood. Because Major Blood has a 4 difficulty and a marksman skill, and Roadblock has a marksman skill as well, that means I get 2 dice from Roadblock and 1 dice from each of my green shirts to try and take out Major Blood at his 4 difficulty, which I did. 2 successes, 2 successes mean Major Blood leaves play. It wouldn't have been a big deal to leave him in because he only affects cards in the lineup with power of 5 or more, and those are all covered. But at least this way, next round, I can start working on clearing out those Cobra battalions, and I have to worry they're just going to refill every single round. So then I'll spend the energy from this mission. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 energy that I can spend on this one. And honestly, there's not much I can spend it on except Jinx and the Sky Striker. So I'm going to add Jinx to my deck. Jinx has a 4 martial arts skill, and if she is part of the Joe team that I send to engage in a story mission, then she returns to my hand after the fact. Fill my lineup, and I'm actually going to take my second effort card, which allows me to re-roll a die, and I'm going to put it into my reserve so that I can add it to my hand on my next draw. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Shuffle, draw my 5th card to refill my hand. I'm going to add my reserve card back into my hand and see what I can do for the second half of this 2-step round. So I've got a couple pieces here. I've got Beachhead and 3 green shirts. Unfortunately, if I were to try to conduct this mission right now, the skills associated with it are Tech and Tracker. And Beachhead has a stealth skill, meaning if I were to use Beachhead to try and complete this mission, he'd only be worth 1 energy, 1 die, rather than the 4 that his stealth skill grants. So if I were to engage in the mission, I would only have those 4 die to complete a 5 difficulty mission, but I can also discard 1 complication, but it's not as good as it sounds because it forces me to draw and immediately play another complication instead, so it could potentially be worse for me. And the other one just allows me to get rid of a card in my discard pile, which I don't really need right now because really only good for clearing out Cobra Troopers when you get those added. So because I don't have a lot of different options or different things I can do, instead I will use 2 green shirts to take care of, I don't know, let's say this Cobra Battalion. No, this Cobra Battalion. So I got one successful attack. Cobra Battalion has 2 difficulty. So I'm going to use my second effort to re-roll that missed attack. See if I can. Of course not do anything because, as I've said earlier, I am not good at dice rolling. You'll see that constantly throughout these streams, I'm sure. So those 2 didn't do anything. I'm going to also try Beachhead. Oh, you know what? I honestly should have used my 3rd green shirt. What happens if I turn back time? Never mind. Wouldn't have succeeded anyway. But because Cobra Battalions allow any skill to be used, I can go ahead and use Beachhead's 4 stealth to try and take out that same Cobra Battalion. See if I have a little more luck this time. Of course, this time I have all successes. So at least I got rid of that Cobra Battalion. By doing so, though, I also got access back to the promoted Snake Eyes, and on this particular turn, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 8 energy that I'm able to spend. Thanks, Linky. It's probably the only one I'm going to get for the foreseeable future. But with that 8 energy, I'll spend 6 to grab the promoted Snake Eyes and 2 to grab the Inspiration utility card. Refill my lineup. Start my hand. And well, a new hand. Okay, so we're at the start of the next turn. I don't have any start of turn complications or difficulties to enact, so I will just move the threat indicator up, which, remember, if I get to the sunburst, that's an immediate game over. So I'm probably going to need to look out for that. But take a look at what we have to play this time. That's actually pretty decent because I've got 3 named Joes and 1 green shirt plus the drone strike, which means if I want to go ahead and execute this mission, which I do because I want to clear out that particular mission card, then I can use the drone strike to make Jinx's 4 in martial arts wild so that I can use it regardless of the fact that Jinx doesn't meet any of the mission skills. So if I do that, I can send up to 4 Joes on this mission using the ban. That allows me to send all the cards in my hand onto this one mission, which will give me 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 dice to try and figure out that 5 difficulty mission. But because I'm executing the mission, I also need to flip my complication card, which is a drone strike. So if I don't clear the drone strike first, then at the end of my next turn, whatever mission comes up to replace my current one automatically fails, and I get the failure criteria stacked onto me. That's probably not a good thing because the next mission that's going to come up is the end of Chapter 1, which are always going to have better rewards and worse penalties. So what I'm going to do, I don't have any of the skills that match for this drone strike because the skills on it are recon and stealth. but I can try to take it out with one of my, or a pair of my Joes that I'm sending on this mission. Pull them off of the mission and instead try to take out that drone. So either way, the drone's going to take precedence for me because I don't want to automatically fail that next mission. So let's go ahead and this is a tough one. Do I use 2 or 3 and then hope that Jinx can get enough hits on her rolls with 4 dice to meet the 5 difficulty of that mission? Or, well, if I use 2 to defeat the drone, I only get 2 dice, so I have to hope for the best for 2 hits. I can supplement and use 3 against the drone, hoping that 3rd die will help me succeed in taking it out. So I think that's probably my best bet, is to use 3 people against the drone. So Roadblock, Sap, and a green shirt. We'll send them up. Now, apparently I'm rolling pretty well today, so I was able to take out that drone with 4 hits. Meaning I don't have to worry about instantaneously failing the next mission. But now I have to try and take out the story mission with just the 4 die that Jinx provides for me. So, ouch. Yeah, that's the kind of rolls that I'm used to. So, unfortunately, that means that the current mission failed. So I have to look at the fail criteria on the mission card, which is +1 on the threat meter and take off or add an additional complication for my next mission. So that's great. That one goes away. These guys all go back to my discard pile. Grab my 5 new cards. Start my next turn, which means the new mission's in play now. So the Rescue the Scientist mission. Add complications equal to the number of players. So fortunately, that's just me, but I also have to add the extra one because of the failure criteria on that last mission. At the end of each round, each player gains a Cobra Trooper. So remember, Cobra Troopers slip into my discard pile and become a part of my deck to complicate matters. So I will add my 2 complications. So at the end of my turn, if I don't defeat that hiss, oops, that mission's over, so my sunburst goes away. If I don't defeat that hiss, then I gain another step up on my threat meter. And the same goes for that Fang Squadron complication. We have both the hiss as a complication, which is 1 difficulty, explosives or tracker, so a couple of different options and skills. And I have the Fang, which is 3 difficulty. That's an aerial mission. And it's got explosives or vehicle skills. I realized I dampened my discard pile instead of back in the hanger. All right, so moving into my part of the turn, I have green shirts, comms, and my distraction card. So my distraction card will help if I want to go up against either the Fang Squadron or the Hiss, but I only have 2 die, so going up against the Fang would probably be a bad idea in this part of my round. I could also go up against any of those Cobra battalions that are still covering cards in my lineup, or I could just skip it and try to improve my deck. Honestly, for this particular round, I think my best bet would be to use my green shirts here and try to take out that Hiss. So the Hiss ground mission, if I had a vehicle with a ground icon on it, I could actually use that to try and gain the bonus from that vehicle for the mission, but for some reason the Vamp doesn't have any mission indicator or special indicator, so I can't use that. So I only have 2 dice. Yeah. So I have 2 dice to not do anything at all. So I did not take out the Hiss, and I only have 3 energy from the cards in my hand on this turn. Go ahead and buy the night vision goggles for lack of anything better to do, which is a piece of gear that allows me to re-roll 1 die for every Joe on the mission. Pretty good benefit, because as I've proven, I need all the die rolling help I can get. Shuffle up my draw pile again and move into the second clear phase of this round. Here's my lineup card. Lineup's getting kind of expensive. I have 2 4 energy cards and 1 6 energy card, and terrible luck drawing enough energy to buy any of them. So let's see if hopefully on this next hand a little better. All right, well, in this hand, I have 2 green shirts, Beachhead and Jinx. Unfortunately, neither the Fang Squadron or the Hiss Tank have stealth or martial arts as part of their mission skills, so the 4 power from both Jinx and Beachhead won't help me at all taking any of those out. I do have a card that allows me to increase any of my attack rolls from a single hit to a double hit. So for this one, I think the best thing I could probably do is go ahead and send 2 Joes, place those 2 green shirts up against the Hiss, which this time I am able to successfully take out. So I clear that Hiss complication. And then I can try to use the 2 power from Jinx and Beachhead to try and take out that Fang Squadron with its difficulty of 3. I do have that card that's going to let me re-roll any attacks that are successful. Not re-roll them, but upgrade them from a single hit to a double hit. So that might be my best bet for this turn, so that I don't end up gaining 2 spots on the threat meter at the beginning of the next turn. So let's go ahead and try that. Not quite. Even if I upgrade, then I don't get anything. I don't get enough hits to take out that Fang Square. But that's on me, because I could have put a card in reserve last turn, and I completely forgot, because I've forgotten the reserve on most turns. If I put the reroll card in, I might have had a better chance at that Fang. But alas, I did not. But at least I have 5 energy from this particular turn, which will allow me to add Cutter into my deck. I don't know why the card art on Cutter looks far more like Wetsuit instead of his normal deck side wear. But it does. So I'll purchase him, replace him in the lineup, guard those 5, and draw my next hand. Move on to the start of the next turn. So the start of turn criteria on this mission is that I add a Cobra Trooper to my deck. So Cobra Trooper goes into my discard pile, and my threat meter increases by 2 because I have not only the standard beginning of round increase, but I have the Fang Squadron complication making things even more difficult for me. So went ahead and drew my new hand, and I've got Roadblock, Snake Eyes, 1 green shirt, my night vision goggles, which allow me to reroll up to 1 die for each Joe, and my proximity mine, which allows me to discard one of my complications that are revealed and draw a new one to replace it and immediately put it in play. So I can go ahead and do that at least. Get rid of that Fang and replace it with a new complication. In this case, Anonymous Tip-Off, which results in me having to add another Cobra Trooper into my deck. So instead of going into my discard pile like the last one did, this one actually shuffles into my active play deck. Still better than increasing the threat meter, I think, because that threat meter's climbing fairly quickly. And now I can focus on seeing what I can do with rescuing the scientist, because Rescue the Scientist has a vehicle and a stealth skill associated with it. So I can use Snake Eyes 3 stealth and 1 additional die from each roadblock and my green shirt. And I have the ability to reroll up to 1 die for each Joe, so I can reroll 3 of my die if I don't succeed in that mission. So I don't have any complications adding anything else to it. I can load all 3 of my characters into the vamp because its capacity is 4. And I get 5 die to try and complete this one. So rolling those out, I got 5 successes, which means it was able to complete this mission. And therefore, the success criteria means that the threat indicator goes down 1 space, and I get to draw 2 cards. So threat meter down 1 space. I get to draw 2 cards. Oh, hey, look, one's a Cobra Trooper. The other is a comms card. So not a lot I can do with that. I just simply have to discard my hand. Oh, wait, I forgot to purchase. I have 2, 4, 6, 7, 8 energy that I can use to purchase cards from the lineup. So I'll grab Wild Bill, place him, and grab the gas grenade for a total of 8. Replace him as well. So because I drew a Cobra Trooper that turn, Cobra Troopers go into your deck, but they also become a hindrance for you on a mission. So you have to play it during a turn. If you don't defeat it, then discard it. So basically are just there to reduce the good cards you're able to draw on your turn. But I'm going to go ahead and draw my new hand for the second part of the solo play turn. Zap, green shirt, detonator, which allows me to destroy a card in my discard pile. So because I have Cobra Trooper from a previous turn still in my discard pile, I can use the detonator to get rid of it. And then I have the drone strike. So one of the Joes that I send on my next mission, I can use their skill as a wild skill, meaning if I want to take out any of the Cobra battalions, I can use whatever skill was the highest value, but Cobra battalions don't have any specific skill requirement anyway, so no need to do that. But I can go ahead and send Zap, who has 3 die up against one of the Cobra battalions. And that did absolutely nothing for me because I didn't roll 2 successes. And unfortunately, I am not able to use the green shirt because the best he can do is give me 1 die, and that won't let me defeat a Cobra Trooper either. So, not a lot of progress made on that turn, but I did get 2, 4, 5, 6 energy. So, Stalker was the last card that got added to my lineup. I can go ahead and pick Stalker up. Which means if I send him solo on a mission, he gets +3 wild. If you have multiple skills that meet the skill requirements of a mission, they're stackable, meaning if I send Stalker on a tracker mission, he gets 3 die from his tracker skill and an additional 3 die from his wild skill if he's the only one I send. Discard that hand, fill my wild card, or my lineup, and start the beginning of my next turn. Which means my next mission goes into effect, and that mission is a snake robot attack. So at the end of each turn, I gain a Cobra Trooper as long as this card's in play. There's 2 complications associated with that card, so I will grab my next 2 complications. First one being higher ground, so if the mission fails, I double the threat meter modifier, which on this particular mission, the failure criteria is +2 to the threat meter. That would make it +4, putting me into the red zone. And my second complication is uninvited guests, which are demon ninjas that add an extra +1 to the threat meter at the end of every turn. Also, increase the threat meter for the start of turn threat, and grab my next 5 cards and see if I can continue making progress. This snake mission has a 6 difficulty, and the associated skills are tech and stealth. So fortunately, I'm pretty stealth heavy in my deck for the Joes that I have available. That might work in my favor. So from this round, I have the gas grenade, which allows me to defeat a Cobra Trooper I control, which I don't have any of. My inspiration card, which allows me to reveal a leader from my hand and draw a card. Unfortunately, I don't have any leaders in my hand. I have 2 green shirts, and I have a single die reroll. So I can either go after the uninvited guest complication to try and clear that one out, or I can try to get rid of another Cobra battalion. I only have 2 attack dice, and I'm just not confident that's going to be enough to get rid of this 3 difficulty uninvited guest. So I'll go ahead and use my 2 green shirts to try and take out Cobra battalion. Yep, that's about right. So again, no Cobra battalion taken out. But at least I do have 2, 4, 5, 6 energy, allowing me to get both Lightfoot and Lift Ticket to add to my deck. Move on to my second round of solo play. Redraw my 5 cards in my hand. Hope for something good this time. I've got Wild Bill, which has a 3 power wild skill. Zap again. The night vision goggles again, which lets me reroll die. The drone strike. I can make any of my abilities wild this time. And cutter. So the snake robot attack is attack and stealth. If I were to try that mission on this turn, Wild Bill gives me 3 because he's wild and meets any of the skill criteria. Zap can also give me 3 because the drone strike allows me to use his explosive skill as a wild skill. And I also have the ability to reroll if I want. I could also send Cutter because he's got a tech skill of 2. He would make it so that I've got 8 dice to roll against the snake attack. But if I just send Wild Bill and Zap, I could reserve Cutter and try to clear out the uninvited guests. Decisions, but I think I'll use all 3 of my Joes to try and clear the snake mission, because success on that means I can increase my threat meter by 2. So I had 8 die, and I rolled 7 misses. I can re-roll 3 of those because of the night vision goggles, allowing me to re-roll 1 die for each Joe on the mission. I might as well try it. Yeah, you guys are telling me. Just watching me roll die is painful. Oh, so close. I got a total of 5 hits on that 6 difficulty mission. Which means instead of getting to reduce the threat meter, the failure criteria on this one is increasing the threat meter by +2. And because I didn't clear it out, the uninvited guests mean I increase it another, so that it's a 3-step increase on the threat meter. And because of higher ground, I doubled the threat meter modifier on that mission that failed, which means 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 steps increase on my threat meter, putting me exactly 1 space away from Cobra winning the whole shebang. And unfortunately, no matter what I do right now, this is the second turn of my solo play turn, meaning we go straight into the beginning of the next round, and one of the beginning of round steps is, of course, increase the threat meter. So unfortunately, as I am given the opportunity to command the G.I. Joe team, I have failed to defeat Cobra. And that's the game over. Not too bad, thanks. But yeah, I think one of the things that really killed us there was that I kept forgetting to use the reserve. And using a reserve card means I could have put some of those re-roll opportunities or hit number increases over there so that on my second round in each turn, I could have potentially taken care of some of those misses that I rolled. So a little bit of a failure on my part, but even so, I hope you all got a nice feel for the game and had fun checking out how the play system works and what the game's all about. Joined us late. I'll be putting this stream up on the new second YouTube channel here, probably in the next however long it takes me to download it. And hopefully, if you missed anything here, you'll be able to check it out there. That's about it for how a first playthrough goes in the G.I. Joe deck building game. If y'all have anything you want to know about it, any cards that you want to see in more detail, I tried to improve my camera setup, but I know it's still a little blurry at that height. I may have to see what I can do to increase the resolution a little bit. But hopefully, overall, the picture and sound were better on this stream than they were on the last one. And I will continue working to refine it. But if anyone's got questions, feel free to throw them out. And if not, I think that's about all we've got for today. I have about 30 games with a single player component, so doing several of these, and I have quite a few video games that are animation adjacent also, including going all the way back to Commodore 64 days and looking at some of those like GoBots, Battle of the Planets, things like that, just to see what we're missing by not having any modern video games for Brave Star and some old properties. So thanks everybody. I appreciate you all watching, and pop back in on Tuesday for a new and different game. See you all then.